Let's work. Yo, it's go time, showtime, never backing down time. One shot, yo, make it count, yo. Crunch time, shine time, make this moment my time. Get a grip, yo, ready, set, go. We bring the thunder. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's go. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Yeah, it's my time, yo time. Step into the spotlight. Get lit, yo. Let yourself go. Our time, high time. Gotta go big time. This is it, yo. Never take no flight time. Grind time. Take it to the street time. Turn the roof off. Get loco. Game time, win time. We gon' bring it home time. No regrets now. Let it all go. We bring the thunder. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's go. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's work.
Well, good evening, all. Welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm, of course, Aeson Knight, and of course, with me tonight is the Techy Cub with the most, Techy Joe. How are you, darling?
Doing well. How are you this evening?
Oh, halfway miserable, halfway aggravated, and trying to figure out exactly what we're doing next week because it is going to be a heater.
Yeah, it is going to be a little bit of a heat wave there. We were calling for more hot weather in the Northeast. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be burning all freaking week. With two isolated thunderstorms, we have hope for rain, but I'll guarantee you it's going to be crap.
Yeah. Weather's been a little weird this summer to begin with. We now have wildfires creating their own weather systems, and a hazy West Virginia.
A very hazy West Virginia.
It is getting a little weird out there.
Well, I think it's getting a little worse. I think it's, we've got literally Canada sending us smoke. Oregon is burning. California now has more wildfires. The West is burning. And then we've got people just being yuts. Now, I know hot weather brings out yutsies, but guys, that is not fog.
Basically. And hey, Brenda. Hey, Ashley. But yeah, no, it's not fog. It's not fog. It's definitely not fog.
And then we've got Britain. Oh my God, you Brits and your Scots. Sorry, welcome to summer. This is what real summer is. Go buy you an AC.
You know, that's probably the bigger concern in all of this are the areas that are used to a more mild summer. Like those are the more dangerous areas. If you're in an area that experiences some high temps for summer, you typically already have an air conditioner or at least a plan for how to keep cool. But if you're kind of experiencing this for the first time, it's always an issue. Like I did what seems like on a map, a fairly short move between West Virginia and North Carolina back in the day. Like, yay, 2000. 20 years ago now, but 21 years ago now. Yep. But it on a map doesn't look like a big change. I will tell you now, it is huge change. Climate wise. Like the weather you experience in summer takes a lot to get used to. And the biggest rule I can tell you is if you're in this heat wave, 11 to 4, do nothing. Do nothing. Don't go out. Don't think you're going to run errands. Don't think you're going to get in and out of that hot car and not experience, or in and out of the heat into an air-conditioned car, like running around, going to lunch, running errands, doing stuff like you normally would without a problem. You will have a problem. It's called heat stroke and heat exhaustion. Right. Heat exhaustion is what happens first. That is that tired, I just want to hibernate feeling. Heat stroke is what comes after that. That is a form of dehydration. If you do experience that, do not immediately go to an air-conditioned area. Do not immediately drink ice cold water. Don't do those things. Move to the shady areas. Drink warm or luke temperature water.
Right.
You're trying to cool down. Don't cool down too quickly. Your body will go into shock. Be very, very careful.
And I'm going to do my normal drink your water reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We love our lovely little tumblers. We can now take fresh iced water with us. Let's go ahead and do some hellos. Welcome to the table, Miss Brenda, Miss Ashley. Oh,
Hi, Sarah.
Sarah. And
Yeah.
Andy. How are you, darlings?
There we go. And so Sarah's comment is the world is either on fire or flooding.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it feels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are your choices.
Welcome to what happens when we take 4 years off of working with global warming. We get more global warming senses. Well, yes, we are in a phase that normally occurs. We've decided to rapidly induce it more. Thank you, Republicans.
Basically, that's the short version of it. Yeah, we're having more problems with the haze. We actually have a surface smoke forecast. Like that's actually now a thing. Surface smoke forecast. And yeah, we're essentially right in the worst of it for West Virginia next week. Or
Currently.
the next few days. Yeah.
I mean, I thought we were in late 1800s England today when I took the dogs for a walk. You know, the smoke and the haze drifting around. This is bad, guys. And if you have asthma, if you have a breathing complication, might want to be watchful when you're out. Might want to wear a mask.
Yeah, you may not be immediately smelling smoke. You may not be immediately feeling it, but it's going to be harder to move around, get around, and exchange that oxygen properly.
Yep. And
even for those without breathing problems.
Exactly. And I'm also going to remind, with the temperatures going 10 to 15 degrees higher next week, bring your animals in, put ice in their bowls if they are not indoor doggies like Gizmo. He doesn't like being indoors during the day.
No, he doesn't.
So he will be getting iced water.
Absolutely. That'll hopefully help keep him a little cool. Plus, he has shaded areas. Don't feel bad. Like, he has shaded areas to go to. He is not just out there in the bright sun.
Right.
He does have shaded areas that he often lays in.
Yeah, and creates. Because, like, he's now pulled down a branch off of one of the trees and was like, "I will make me a lean-to. Thank you very much."
Gotta love the resourceful puppies. Hopefully the neighbors aren't annoyed.
I don't care.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The cool damp bandana is definitely a good help. Again, be very careful with those if you're already starting to show signs of heat exhaustion or heat stroke. That will make things worse, too. You want to start with those and start your process of keeping cool before you get hot, not immediately once you realize you have overheated yourself. Because again, you don't want to cause shock. It's and I say this with a little secondhand experience on that one. One, I've done it to myself before. When I first moved to North Carolina, I probably damn near killed myself trying to find a job. I was running in and out of the car, dropping applications for employment, and then couldn't figure out why every evening I was just like dead.
Right.
Tuck me in. I'm dead. I don't want to do anything. I can't move. I can't eat. I can't do nothing. But now, secondhand experience was when my dad took a crew to North Carolina. He had the unfortunate situation of this was a West Virginia work crew. And so he goes down to North Carolina, takes them with him. And they start working and, of course, hiring some locals. And Dad immediately starts to complain that, you know, all these Southern guys just won't hardly move. They're slower than the rest of us. You know, they just seem lazy, all these things. And then he has one of his West Virginia crew pass out. And the North Carolina guys are the ones that are going, that's heat stroke.
Yep.
And what the West Virginia guys do with this poor worker is they immediately yank him into the air-conditioned office, the little job site office, fully air-conditioned. That's where Dad was sitting. Jerk him in there and start pumping him through full of ice water. Guy ended up at the hospital.
Yeah.
And nearly died. Like, it was just pure luck. He did not die from that because his body was starting to go into shock by the time they realized what everything they had done was wrong. You don't do this. One, in the heat, you have to pace yourself. You have to remember that the harder you work in this heat, the more likely you are to overheat.
Yep.
Move it slower, think it slower, do it slower.
Right.
Yeah. The Marines, they stick a thermometer in your butt.
Although I do think that we may have some TikToks coming up here because Sarah just gave us an idea.
Oh?
Getting Gizmo a pole.
Oh, that should be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And hey, North Carolina and Neil. Yeah, I saw where y'all are headed that way. So
Yeah.
hope it's a wonderful trip. Oh, the gym show was the bomb, but visiting Rose Creek Mine and mining our own was by far better. Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Very
glad to hear, Neil. All right. So do you want to keep going? Do you want to go work our way out? Or do you want to go from national in?
Oh, I don't know. You choose. Heck it.
Well, you know, here I am scrolling through my TikTok and something pops up, and it's one of those things that piss me off. You know, just the cover pisses me off.
Okay, so let me add that to stream.
So, Blue Moon Cafe, a popular local eatery in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, decided to pull a little stunt, a little cute little stunt on Friday. They posted this on their Facebook page. Pause if you want to read.
We'll read it for you in a minute.
Turns out that after trashing the community for being on government assistance during the pandemic and not paying their employees through the pandemic, they went on ahead and collected $300,000 in government handouts. Kind of cute and quirky considering they weren't paying employees in anything more than tips during the pandemic while they were open and scheduling people. So then we move on to Saturday morning, a busy Saturday morning in downtown. And suddenly they're closed for emergency repairs. Turns out that the entire staff walked out, refused to work, and they were all fired. And they're now lying about it and still trashing the community. So anyway, we'll talk more about this in part 2.
All right.
Hey.
So that was video from Nation Decay. And yeah, so what they posted was this image that said, sadly, due to government handouts, no one seems to want to work anymore. Therefore, we are short-staffed. Please be patient and kind with our staff that did choose to work. Remember to tip your server and or cooks. They chose to show up to serve you. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Ticked off a lot of employees.
Well, especially so when it came to light that they had actually gotten the money for the pay tax protection program, but didn't pay their employees the whole damn pandemic. Still hasn't paid their employees. Like, they showed up for their last check and had police escort them off the property.
Mm-hmm. So during the pandemic, they went to a takeout service. And effectively what they were doing was not paying any form of hourly wage to those employees, letting them rely on any tips they receive. For a lot of people paying for takeout, don't usually tip. So effectively these employees were volunteering to work through the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah. all of whom got quite angry with this lovely little notice they put up and decided to walk out.
Right.
At which point, the owners decided, instead of taking any responsible action or trying to negotiate with them or talk to them in any way, we'll just fire all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping the labor board moves on this. If you are a server at, what is it, Blue Moon, New Moon, Blue Moon Cafe,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be contacting the labor board.
Oh, yeah. In some good news in this, as the story has developed, apparently through community support, a lot of the employees that have worked there have found jobs in the area with other businesses. Those businesses were encouraged to hire them through community forums. There's been vigils for those workers, as well as a GoFundMe to help them during the transitional period between effectively losing their job, not getting that last paycheck, and while they're finding new employment and getting started there.
Right.
And some of these employees had been there for like 15 years.
Right.
Which, in terms of food service, that's a long time, because that is a high turnover field.
Right. And here's the thing with it, though. These little places like this, there's the Blue Moon. My favorite here is the Omelet Shop. They tend to be long-term employees. They tend to stay there for a very long time. Why? Because they get connected with their customers. If the staff, if management treats them right, and some of these, they had lived through a sellout buyout.
Mm-hmm. And that's looking like the biggest issue that's happened. Is it doesn't seem as much like the former owners were like this much of a dick.
Nope.
To have pulled this stunt. It's looking like new management came in and basically they bought a hot property in terms of the brand and the the restaurant itself, and basically went through to milk it for all it was worth.
Right. And that includes their labor.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, guys, as you're dealing with this, as the employees are starting over, I'm glad to see that they've been hired, because this is what's going to happen. This is the new reality. If you don't like your dang boss, if your boss is a dick like this one and wins my stupid award for the week, maybe even the month, we may give him the stupid award for the month.
Yeah, this is a particularly bad situation. Because remember, those loans were intended to actually prevent exactly this.
Exactly.
To either putting employers in a position in which they were financially insecure enough that they were either having to ask for employee volunteers or close.
Right.
That was the whole goal, was to ensure that they were not having to do mass layoffs, that they were able to meet their payroll demands, and survive the pandemic and remain functional.
Right.
And that their employees did not have to end up choosing to leave or choosing, to stay and suffer.
Right.
Along with the business. Instead,
right.
This is a company who took with one hand and then didn't give with the other, because that's what these loans were meant to do, is to move money into the business so that the business was flush with cash and had the ability to continue to meet the demand of their employee responsibilities.
Right.
They took it. We don't know what happened with that money. We don't know how the company used that money, or if they just set it over in a bank account and said, let's draw some interest, or what they did. We don't know what they did. But ultimately, it did not go to employees.
While it's unconfirmed, it is being reported that the employer took a number of vacations during the pandemic.
Yeah. Not a good choice there. Financially, logically, legally. Not good choices. Not good choices. None whatsoever. Not a good choice being made there.
Right.
But I see the kicker there.
Yeah.
And especially for employees, with this whole no one seems to want to work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Not it's really not work
Right.
when you're not being paid.
Right.
It's a really hard volunteer opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And no one wants to volunteer to do this level of effort,
Right.
for little more than tips that don't occur. Because again, I don't know for others, but I tend to, if there are some situations where no, I don't tip. I don't tip at Burger King.
Mm-hmm.
I don't tip at McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't.
Right.
I'm doing pretty much the whole thing here. Like, you made my food, you put it in a bag, you handed it to me.
Right.
Like, I'm going to refill my own drinks. I'm going to do the, delivery and all of this. I'm not tipping. I think most people don't. I would also say I don't know that many people tip that heavily at businesses that put out like tip jars, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those never seem all that full. Like, it seems like $20 divided by 5 people kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
With a few cents here and $1 there, and maybe the lucky like $5.
Right.
It's a little extra. It helps. That's cool. But these are typically restaurants that don't have a tip on card option.
Right.
It's not that customary to their industry to put tip on, or to enable tip on card.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and considering the vast majority of us, at least, of people I know, do you take plastic? Like, we have plastic.
Right.
What
Well,
we got.
there's some things that I'm looking through the Appalachia postings and looking at. One, the multiple verifications. According to the PPE loan, they had 35 people employed by them. That's the reason they got so much money.
Okay.
This restaurant is open for lunch and dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It is a quarter of the space that my old restaurant was. At our heyday, our busiest day, and I would hire people just for that day, we had probably 35 people for a 24-hour restaurant. There is no way he had 35 employees.
Regularly. Well, now possibly there is. And that would be part of the minimum wage, minimum hours concept that we see so often.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of spreading out the hours by higher number of workers, so that he could very well have had 35 employees,
mm-hmm.
But all working 20 hours or less a week.
Right. Well, they'd have to work like 8 hours a week.
Yeah,
literally, to fit them into this building. Thank you, lovely, Google Earth for showing me its space. Mm-hmm. There's no way there's 35 employees.
No, like, it's never going to be 35 working all at once. I don't think I don't think they can really handle that many employees at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't clarify whether they had a catering staff. Because this was a popular place, and a lot of popular businesses do end up with catering options for corporate events. Yeah.
Well, looking at the holiday picture, like, these employees are providing the receipts.
Fun.
A holiday party from a couple years ago. There is maybe 20 people there. And that's if we count the pictures on the back.
Oh, fun. Yeah. So I was just trying to avoid the concept of, like, we're saying there's no way he has, and then there actually was a way. Like, they would have a separate location where they did all their catering out of, like a catering kitchen and any kind of delivery service they may have offered to businesses or for corporate functions. Because there are businesses that do that. Like, their physical footprint and their actual walk-in, get a table restaurant may not be big, but then they have a side, secondary structure that does all catering.
Right.
So weddings and events and having staff that is constantly used just in that regard.
Right. And of course, immediately they delete their social media. They're saying they're closed for emergency repairs. Yeah. Well, yes, there is a shortage in labor. We have over 600 million people now dead.
Well, yeah, there's a big change in the labor market and how many people are there. There's also high demand.
Yeah.
What we're running into and what we're constantly seeing with the no one seems to want to work anymore crowd is a reality of no one wants to work for peanuts. Like, quite frankly, no one has ever wanted to work for peanuts. And to be blunt about it, no one's ever wanted to work. I don't know a single person that has not ever thought that, life would be better laying on a lounge being fed peeled grapes. Unless you're allergic to grapes.
Nuts.
Pardon?
I would go nuts.
I'm just saying, but you could then choose what you put your effort into.
Right.
As in, you can have a passion project, not be required to pay the bills project, known as a full-time job that you are struggling to make ends meet with. No one wants that job.
Right.
Like, no one has ever shown up on this planet and went, I want to work 40, 50, 60, 80 hours or more a week just to barely keep my head above water while taking on large gasps of water, trying to not drown for 40 or more years.
Right. No one does that. No one does that. Hi, Devin. Welcome to the party. I hope ritual was good. But here's the hypocrisy of this. Of course, I've not liked this PPP program since the beginning. We have seen
a lot of that
after business take advantage.
Right. We've seen so many, just the number of problems that program had. Not that the program itself was well-intentioned and a good idea.
Right.
The way that the money was used, the way that businesses attacked getting those loans, the way that intermediaries sought to benefit their best customers by filling out the paperwork for them and fudging whatever numbers they had to get them the maximum amount to keep that client happy or provide a beneficial service to that client. And then how companies have in turn used that money. We take massive issue with that. That has been a big detriment, black eye to the whole concept. This was intended to help businesses and to help employees more specifically, to retain employment and to keep trained employees on the job.
Right.
Even after the pandemic ended, so that these employees were not just as at will as they could have been.
Right.
And were not taken advantage of or otherwise mistreated through the pandemic. To see companies that have gone through and effectively taken the money with one hand and then smack their employees with the other, that's been the biggest problem.
Right. So here's Mr. Math. Both structures going out. 320 billion.
1 second. 320 billion?
Billion.
Hold on, I need a few more zeros. There we go.
669 billion.
Oh, we're adding?
Yes.
Okay.
Give me a minute. I got to grab the other one.
Is this for how much the program overall distributed in each of its phases?
No, I'm wondering if they had done it differently.
Okay.
Divide that by 228.2 million people.
Okay, that number again?
328.2 million.
All right, so 328,200,000.
Correct.
That would be $3,013.40, roughly 1 cent, but if we round down, $3,013.40.
Right. So that would have been an old stimulus check.
Well, it would have been a couple of stimulus checks.
Yeah.
That's like three, if we're looking at the, 2 stimulus checks roughly. Because if we divide that by 2, well, if we divide that by the, what was it, 1,600? 1,300? I'm trying to remember. 1,400? What was the amount of stimulus check?
Let's go for 1,200.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just having a moment. Can't remember. There would be 2.5 more stimulus checks.
Yeah.
At the 1,200 number.
Right.
Sorry, it just wouldn't pop into my head how much those checks were.
Right.
So yeah, 2.5 more stimulus checks.
Yeah. That's what we spent on PPE on the benefited businesses. I won't say small businesses because there was many small businesses that were left out of this.
Yes, it actually more so went to large businesses,
right.
With a large number of large companies that should have had their own effective war chest, or rainy day fund, however you want to put it. Basically, companies with undoubtedly large amounts of cash reserves. That would have been perfectly comfortable through this while maintaining their payments to employees, and any responsibilities to their employees. Instead received massive multi-million-dollar PPP loans.
Right. I think they should create a enforcement department that goes through and audits every single PPE loan.
Yeah.
Like payroll. There are payroll records. Show us where you paid your employees. Oh, you didn't pay employees? Not a problem. We will take that $300,000 back. Thank you very much. Straight from your bank account. Lovely. Oh, you don't have that amount? Not a problem. We will take it out every time money goes in your account until it's paid off. Because, there is a lot of people out, a lot of companies out there that went and done this, that went and bought. The owners got new cars. The owners took that. The owners did this. The owners suddenly had staff. They hadn't had staff. They were independent companies that were one-person shows that lied and got it.
Well, no, Ashley, we are not getting another stimulus check, which, by the way, there's been a lot of scams floating around stimulus checks. Please be careful, guys. But no, this is us reviewing how that PPP loan money was spent versus if we had taken the total funding that was provided for it and divided that across everyone who received stimulus checks in general. If we had divided that PPP money up, that would have been 2.5 more stimulus checks that could have gone out using that same money.
Right. And Shannon says she knows a lady that does handmade soaps on the side. Not her main business. This was her side gig. She collected 12 or 16K in PPP and decided to live off of it for the rest of the year.
You know, I almost enjoy that more. Like, you go, girl. In terms of that was someone who was actually working and producing something, and she was her own staff. And invariably, if you're doing handmade soaps, that often gets sold at events or sold to like on consignment or direct sale to a shop. You know, there's a lot of ways that you retail soaps.
Right.
All of those would have been affected.
Right.
About the only thing that would not have been affected would have been online sale.
Right.
But even then, when you're looking at how people were spending money during the pandemic, handmade soaps probably wasn't top of the list. So I have a better appreciation for one person getting that money because her business was impacted. And effectively using that money to support herself through the pandemic. I have less of a problem with that than someone. Yeah, she sold at flea markets on and Facebook through mail. So I'd say flea markets were probably a large part of that. Like that's vending events. With so many of those being canceled, I'm sure that was a potentially major hit. Right. In terms of sales volume.
Right.
Now, do I really think it's 12 or 16,000? Probably not. Yeah, I'm totally at the good for her.
Yeah, I'm at the good for her because that's what it was meant to do.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it was meant to do. It was not made to pay for a vacation while your employees are working for tips.
Right. Exactly. That's the bigger issue. Is the, you know, if you bought a jet, if you bought a yacht, if you were buying things that in no way supported your business at all,
right,
or did not allow your employees to continue to operate in perhaps a reduced or different capacity, you know, if it did not support the business itself, as in, I don't have a problem with anyone who got payment protection money or payroll protection money, who ended up having to use that money to set up an online, you know, website to do stuff,
right,
to make sales and continue to allow the business to operate,
right,
in a different capacity.
Exactly.
Who argues that one? Like, that was stuff you needed to do for your business to keep it viable through the pandemic. I got it. I'm good. Got that. If you needed to retrain or order equipment to allow telephone sale or order taking, I get that.
Right.
But to use it to go buy something that, you know, hi, I'm Joe's Crab Shack, and I just, you know, bought an airplane, or I took a vacation to the mountains. How did this extend your business? How did this help your employees? How did this money do anything to help anyone?
Right. All right. I'm going to take a look at this forced stimulus check. I'm going to be very blunt with it. Death card, followed by the Eight of Pentacles, followed by the Eight of Swords. To put it nicely, fat chance in Hades that we're going to get a forced stimulus check.
Ooh, different question, though.
Okay.
And I'm interested on the card's hot take on this one. Will the U.S., will this, for the future, push the U.S. into a basic income? Let's see if we get that death card again. And then you do have some other questions, though, popped.
I do.
Yeah.
All right. So we have the Ace of Pentacles. So there's going to be some changes in new money. We have the Fear card, i.e. the Moon, followed by the Tower, followed by the Hierophant.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Did I just get a yes?
You got a yes, but it's going to be one of those. It'll be a yes, but it'll be a multitude level change.
Okay, so it's going to be a long time coming, but it's structurally all in place to do that. Right. Sorry, I'm just thinking through the cards you just said, and I went, I think I got a yes.
Yeah, yes.
Not
you can make your yes, but here's how it's going to probably play out. I'd say this child tax credit is going to expand, but we're going to have some infrastructure and some financial economy-based things that causes a lot of shakeup and a lot of turn. That causes the higher powers to step in there and go, okay, this is how we deal with this. This is what we do.
All right.
All right. So let's just start shooting down the questions and taking them on.
All right. Now, I believe Ashley has our first one of the evening. So, Ashley, 82696, is my mother-in-law looking for her new partner in the right places?
No. 1, she needs a rest. 2, she needs to go get social. And then I think she'll find a relationship.
Alrighty.
So, go find a hobby, play bingo, go to church. I don't know where she's looking now, but it ain't the right place. She's going to find the same discount men she's found before.
Stop shopping for men at the flea market used table. Okay, Devin, 31678. Saw my ex and his lady at the grocery store. Wondered if they were as nervous as they looked.
Yes, they were. Matter of fact, they were a little scared shitless, afraid you were going to say something or make a scene.
Okie dokie. Hey, that's a good place to keep your exes at. I'm there. I am there. Alrighty. And not a card question, but is it true that loads under 20,000 they're not worried about recouping?
I doubt it. I think they should go after it completely.
Ooh, Ashley has a follow-up question. 92971, is Brian a good match? This is actually Ashley's mother-in-law.
In the summer or warm climate, he is. If he gets cold and stops getting sun, he is not, because he goes into depression mode, and that causes problems.
All right, so keep Brian warm, and life is good. Keep driving towards the beach. Keep driving towards the beach.
Yep. All right.
Oh, and Devin says, I think they were shocked when I walked away as if I didn't know them.
And that's the best way to be with exes. Act like you don't know them. Don't know them. Forget their names. Forget their situations. Forget their drama. Don't carry it around, because if you carry around people's drama and problems, then you're giving them free rein in your head. You got to stop that. I don't do it. I refuse to do it.
All right. Hello, Texas. Hello from West Virginia, actually. Chrissy.
Hi, Chrissy. Welcome from Texas. All right. So let's take on. Apparently, Joe Manchin is practicing ghosting.
Aww. Ghosting Joe Manchin. What?
As he normally does. He has gone disappearing from the labor unions, which he used to get elected.
Well, as you do in West Virginia.
Yes. We can't reach him. Joe Manchin is ghosting the West Virginia union workers whose jobs his daughter helped outsource.
Mm-hmm. So Mylon Pharmaceuticals, whom you may remember as the price gouging EpiPen maker, where his daughter works, who took a lot of flack for that lovely $500 jump in EpiPens, that made them the $500, oh my God, nightmare for people who have severe allergic reactions all throughout the United States. Yeah, so she works for Mylan Pharmaceuticals. And so that is a business in Morgantown, West Virginia, sitting on 22 lovely acres, built in 1965. And they are a generic drug company, meaning that they don't really create anything new and exciting. They are the ones that continue making drugs after that, sweet, sweet patent money runs out. So things like EpiPens, which have been around for a while now.
Right.
All your meds that are, or potentially all the meds that are in that, like, well, the patent run out, there's no hot money to be made. Oh, but there is when you're the only company still making it. One of their biggest medications is levothyroxine, which is a thyroid medication. If you have a thyroid disorder, usually hypothyroidism, and a very critical medication. They make a substantial portion of the world's supply of that. So, yeah, they have laid off 1,431 highly trained workers, analytical chemists, industrial engineers, and some senior janitors among them, who are all represented by the Steelworkers Union. And they are going to be laid off at the end of this month. Hi, Gwen. Good evening to you as well.
Yep. So local 8957 managed to get roughly 2 minutes of his time over the call he took at the U.S. Senate, from the U.S. Senate floor, and there was no fighting at all. Sorry to hear about your luck, he told them. According to the union officers confirmed by 5 others who participated in the March 10th call, it sounded like they reached a corporate decision. There was little he can do. However, his daughter got $30.8 million in a golden parachute.
Gotta love the golden parachute. Gotta love it. So basically, she used to work there, is what that means. Not meaning that she may entirely have left Mylan. We do see that sometimes with businesses that reorganize in other places. She may be temporarily fired. More than likely, she's going to go on to gain another lovely job with high pay. Meanwhile, she gets $30.8 million to go do that. Or to do whatever she wants to with. Buy another house, take a vacation, retire for life, become whatever she wants to be. Meanwhile, these workers left with flipping nothing, considering these are good paying jobs. The kind that West Virginia keeps claiming we are getting, and usually involves another restaurant, which we just saw in an earlier story how well that goes. Or hotel services or other tourism related businesses. Not that we think Mylan is the best company ever, we don't, but at least they were a good employer financially for many of the employees they had.
Right. But now we've got 37,000 full-time employees looking for new work, trained in a profession they're going to have to leave West Virginia for, if they choose to.
I'm sorry. 30,000 or 1,400? Sorry.
3,400 are the ones that did not find new jobs in West Virginia and will be leaving.
Okay, so there were only a small number or a portion of their employees that were covered under union.
Yep. Yeah, 1,400 were covered under union.
Oh yeah, 3,700 full-time employees. Yeah. And it is currently one of the largest drug manufacturing sites, according to the FDA, in the U.S.
Right.
as in it dwarfs most other American drug manufacturing sites.
Exactly.
So this is not just a big loss to West Virginia and West Virginia workers. This is a big loss to the United States and its ability to manufacture stateside medication.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes us more reliant on foreign markets for meds.
Right. And foreign problems.
Mm-hmm.
i.e. the other place that produces the say the name, levothyroxine.
Levothyroxine.
Right. Is India or Australia. Well, Australia has fires and floods, and India has been having labor problems for years. This is one of those drugs that insurance companies do not mind giving you 90-day supplies. That is how important it is to have your meds.
Yes.
So a shortage of any form of that is never good.
No, it is not. Especially not when you're the major manufacturer of it, and you now have to wait for the rest of the world to kick its butt in gear.
Mm-hmm.
Because this effectively means there's a possibility that there could be a temporary shortage of the medication. Just in terms of there's going to be a delay right now.
Right.
Which is twofold. One, we have, as we learned through the pandemic, a lot of problems with manufacturing facilities.
Right.
In terms of keeping social distance, a lot of those facilities were not built for that. It is very hard to operate them under social distancing guidelines. Additionally, there's currently problems with exports. If any of these meds are going across the ocean, floaty. There is currently delays and problems getting through port and getting the rest of that shipment underway. Now, invariably for a medication such as this that has a high usage rate, there's going to be a fairly significant supply. What we're that's already in the works for distribution. The question becomes is how big is that supply, how long will it last, and how much of the gap will it cover?
Right. Now, what I find interesting, Esso,
Pardon?
Representative Anna Esso, Democrat for California, chair of the House Energy and Commission Committee, Health Subcommittee, said that the impending Morgantown plant closure, Congress invested millions of dollars in COVID-19 relief bill to support the construction or renovation of U.S.-based drug manufacturing facilities to protect our domestic drug supply chain and the jobs they produce. If we fail to address the dangerous trends, the U.S. will continue to be at the mercy of subpar manufacturing and vulnerabilities to foreign adversaries.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a general domestic supply concept, and it is one that is often seen in terms of foreign policy. Or more so continuity plans for domestic function.
Right.
I.e., if we get into a situation which, there's a World War III, and we need to be able to do certain things on our own. We need some facilities to always maintain function stateside that can produce some basics. This is kind of a World War II era concept, as in you cannot have a country that can win a war when it is dependent upon exports and imports.
Right.
We know this, basically this is the Cuba concept.
Right.
Is that you do not, as a large country, as a major world power, want to be so dependent upon outside resources that an embargo will immediately cripple your country.
Right.
Because it's a weak spot.
Right.
It creates the need to capitulate to demand.
Right.
It's why it is often effective for smaller countries to start an embargo, as it effectively leaves them in a position they cannot continue to function.
Right.
Cuba survived for a very long time,
And it's still there.
and is still there. You know, that's a debatable one. But for most countries, an embargo is effectively a death nail. They have to capitulate and agree,
Right.
in order to resume normality.
Right. Now, this is something that gets me, and it aggravates me every time I see it. We have given these companies money, so now they're closing plants. They're moving stuff out of country, but we gave them money to stay here.
Yeah, and effectively it looks like they use that money to do exactly the opposite.
Exactly.
I mean, at least, you know, if you're looking at it from a bird's eye view perspective, it kind of ends up feeling like we just gave you the money to relocate your business to a foreign country, even though what we gave you the money for was to keep your company here and to make sure that it could continue to function through a pandemic, because we wanted to keep your business functional, because we need you. We recognize we need you. We recognize the ability you have at those facilities to continue functioning, and how we can, you know, rededicate and redeploy your services to maintain the good of our country. To then in turn get the slap in the face of thanks for the freebies. Bye, y'all.
Right.
You're out of here.
This is what gets me, and it aggravates me to no end. We have a representative of California dealing with something in West Virginia. Why? Because our 3 representatives are too busy whining and complaining or playing, you know, rhino in a donkey field.
Yeah. Well, or more importantly, are using this as a, either using this as a political maneuver or to their base, in which, you know, yay, capitalism is amazing. Not that I think capitalism sucks. I just think there is a small line between being in business, running a business, turning a handsome profit, and being a responsible, you know, employer. And, well, Jeff Bezos, which is the level this is going to.
I'm not mad at Jeff Bezos. Now,
a little mad at Jeff Bezos.
Not mad.
I'm kind of happy about the FAA changing on literally the day he flew his dick into space. The requirements to get your astronaut wings, so that he was excluded, because effectively his automatic, you know, vibrator space ride required him to perform no function other than be a passenger. And the FAA has has changed the definitions of astronaut to include that you must, to be called an astronaut, perform some useful function.
I'm not mad at him for going to space. I'm not mad at him for moving into a tiny house. I'm not mad for him when he sat back down on Earth, looked at 2 different people and says, you get $100 million, you get $100 million. Have a good day.
Right. Again, it's not that I care, per se, other than effectively the way he got to space was through abusing employees. Like, I'm sorry, he did. He has. These are not... These are employees suffering some really bad working conditions.
Again, I'm not mad at him. He continues to run a company. He continues to deal with employees. He continues to make innovations. He's continuing to launch, without government funding, a satellite system to take care of the broadband service that apparently suddenly can't.
I thought that was Elon Musk. Starlink.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's Musk, not Bezos.
Okay, whoever's doing Space Nine, I like them. Whoever's doing Amazon, I like them.
Okay.
This is how we get innovation. This is why we had Chase.
Okay. I'm just saying I have some issues with his whole like process there. A lot of livable wage payments could have been made to his employees. Improved working conditions could have existed for his employees, but instead that money was what he used to take a joyride through space.
You mean like the same plan that JFK had created in 1960?
I know we should already be there. No, I get that in terms of the space race, we should already be there.
We should already have space. We should already be having colonies on Mars, following JFK's thing. If Nixon wasn't there acting like a con man to begin with, we'd already have it.
Fair. Well, I don't know. I can't totally blame Nixon. Like, there were some really bad things that happened in the space program that were really, really chilling on, like, this, like, let's go to space, and kind of turn that program into, oh, let's slow down us going to space for a minute and make sure we're doing all this the right way and safely and no one else dies.
We should already be there. These little joyrides that these billionaires are taking, the only thing they're doing is perfecting equipment.
I can see the value in what they're doing to some degree. At the same time, I also look at how they're effectively doing it. And a lot of that is coming off of, exploiting some of their workers. I take issue with that. Is, that quite frankly, that if you're looking at their companies, Bezos specifically, you could do this and wait a few months. I mean, quite frankly, at the profitability of Amazon, I doubt it would have delayed him more than a few months to have long-term paid his employees properly. Because quite frankly, the amount of money that he's making is ridiculous. And the tiny portion that would come out percentage-wise of what he makes could easily have been better working conditions for his employees. That's my argument. Yeah. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, I don't care. You're a billionaire. You want to go to space. Yay, have fun. Go do that. My issue is, meanwhile, you still have an employee issue.
Yeah, $17 an hour employee issue.
But there are other conditions there. Because there's also a lot of those employees, like, that is a properly hired Amazon employee. That does not count all the temporary employees through employment agencies that they also work at those jobs at a much that their actual take home, because they're with the temp agency, their actual take home is minimum wage or barely above it.
Well, their Amazon jobs are actually, according to the Insider, setting a new minimum wage. In 2018, he rose it to 14.8. So $14.8. And then he recently, in April, rose it to $17 an hour, and began hiring 75,000 new hirees in the warehouses and logistics that year. So he's paying more than minimum wage.
Okay.
And Amazon introduced in 2018 $15 minimum wage for all sub-employees.
Okay.
I mean, when we start looking at facts, start looking at jobs, start looking at sub-employers, we start looking at what the wage is. What are they being paid?
Mm-hmm.
It's like Christmas in, high shipping areas. They start hiring travelers. They have a complete parking lot for RV people to come in and work because they need more employees. They specifically cater to that.
Okay.
So they have their own little RV parks built around their warehouses.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you getting they're not paying a livable wage?
The conditions for Amazon employees that I was specifically talking about
Mm-hmm.
would be the fulfillment rate or the pick rate.
Okay.
Which has been a long-standing problem that Amazon has had. That functionally, these are employees that do not get breaks because the requirements for their breaks, coupled with their pick quotas, coupled with the size of Amazon facilities, often leaves it an impossibility. As in using a restroom or taking an actual lunch break effectively to get to their designated lunch area or their designated bathroom is you can't do it and maintain your quota. They literally have employees peeing in bottles because they can't get to a bathroom. Otherwise, they get fired automatically because they continually would fail to meet their quota. The pace at which that quota is set is so high that any kind of break would destroy it.
Well, again, we disagree on this one. We're going to disagree on this one.
Mm-hmm.
In general. I like Ashley's comment. She told a friend she's okay with sending billionaires to space first because it's let them work out the kinks that are working out before it's wildly accessible.
Mm-hmm.
You see, this should already be accessible. I should be able to take a vacation on the moon. If we had followed the plans that were laid out when we went to the moon, we'd already have bases there. China would not be building an international space station because the U.S. would already have a space station. Instead, we're going to be retiring the International Space Station in 5 years, just like we retired the shuttles.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not arguing our space program does not have problems and did get horribly underfunded and continuously set back into its forward mission. Functionally, yes, we should all be greyhounding it to the moon or taking vacations in an orbiter. Like orbits should be a totally different website. That's where I'm at. Like, I think it should be a discount hotel chain that has multiple floating hotels surrounding the planet. That's what I think orbits ought to be. And I think if we had kept pace in that program, this is where we'd be. This is what we'd be doing. it would be feasible. Not necessarily an every year vacation, maybe, but at least conceivably a once in a lifetime vacation. If not, just a fun day trip. So, yeah, no, that part I get. And I can appreciate renewing interest in space travel. I can appreciate, the improvements that this will functionally make for that. Those aren't my issues. My issues are that, no, we're not already there. 2, this is now a billionaires club. 3, that, what we're functionally doing with that, when you look at the billionaires making that choice, the majority have fundamentally, made how they have made their money to be able to do this. I do take some issues with.
Understandable. All right, moving on. It looks like Tennessee is redoing their vaccine program quickly.
Yay. So we did cover that earlier. They were having some problems with Republican state representatives who very much thought that basically children were being exploited in this. So Tennessee got a whole slew of new guidelines for how they were going to not talk to minors. They were not going to be using their agency logo on reminder cards or any other publications, and were effectively going to do much smaller outreach. That was our previous coverage.
Right. But see, here's the problem. Tennessee is one of the handful of states that actually recognizes that teens have the right to, from age 14 to 17, to make medical care choices and decisions. That includes vaccines. That includes vaccinations without parents' consent.
And that's a very important thing, especially with a heavy anti-vaxxer movement. And I am more than sure that Tennessee has its fair share, or more than, of anti-vaxxers. So giving kids the empowerment to choose differently in that regard, because vaccinations are very important. For some things, those teenage years, those are prime optimal times to get those vaccinations before you get exposure, HPV being one of the big ones.
Right.
Considering that, typically for those who are sexually active, there is a high transmission rate of HPV. Not everyone who gets HPV has an increased cancer risk, but or goes on to get cancer, more importantly. But if you are susceptible, and or you are sexually active with someone who is, you increase their cancer risk with that transmission. So what is typically recommended, and why the guidelines are set where they are for receiving that vaccination, are to try to prevent as many transmissions of the virus to reduce the likelihood of developing those specific cancers. If you have an anti-vax parent, you effectively could end up in a situation in which you're going to end up getting HPV and or cancer related to that, or passing on HPV to someone who is susceptible to those cancers, because you missed the window. So yeah, that one in specifics. So yeah, giving kids the right to make those choices, very, very important.
Right, but it's also important to educate the children, especially coming out of these anti-vaxxer sentiments, anti-vaxxer homes. There's a ton of misinformation. We're still seeing that with COVID. We're continuing to see that with everything else. Like, I think they should be charged with child neglect.
Yeah. I think we agree on that one. That I'm sorry, vaccination. Like, it kills me that this is still a hard topic for people, or that people are jumping off the vaccination bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
I find it ridiculous that some studies that were thoroughly debunked
Right.
are still their main, source of, sowing vaccination fear. Typically, it's the study that showed a link between autism and vaccination, which again, thoroughly debunked.
Mm-hmm.
That study was flawed from the word go. So, and then we have the whole tinfoil hat conspiracy crowd that with COVID currently is sowing the idea that, they're implanting microchips.
Right.
One, you're carrying the microchip in your hand. You've given it to your teens. Every teen has one, virtually.
Right.
Like, you really got to be suffering in the world, especially today. Like, I remember a point in which it's like, oh my God, you gave a teenager an iPhone, being a thought that I had.
Right.
Like, who does that?
Right.
Now we're to a point of, I stopped short of calling it child abuse for your teen to not have a cell phone. I do go with, I don't know how well this teen is going to do
Mm-hmm.
in a world that's this connected, that is this reliant on technology,
Mm-hmm.
to be denied access to what has become a ubiquitous and damn near basic necessity to navigate the world today.
Right.
That's where I'm at with that.
Right. But Jenny McCarthy and Jim Carrey have glamorized the anti-vaxxer movement, according to Devin. Here's my thoughts. Jenny McCarthy, why is a DJ from MTV's Summerfest having an influence on anything?
We've seen this with celebrity, though. Like, we want... No. But at the same time, we sit here and praise... Princess Diana, Cher, Dolly Parton, for the significant amount of stigma they reduced surrounding HIV.
Right. But again,
that's the power of celebrity. It's to borrow the old Joan Crawford line, it's a knife, it cuts both ways.
Right.
That on one hand, you can use celebrity endorsement to promote very good things and create an interest in something that people would otherwise ignore.
Right. But, she's a washed up DJ. Point blank. MTV hasn't played music forever.
Basically. That's which is sad.
Yeah.
But that's a separate topic.
That's where she got her fame from. That she's washed up. She doesn't do any more DJing. She doesn't do anything else. So why has she got any evidence in this field? Then we have Jim Carrey, who is a comedian, a comic, sometimes an actor. Didn't really like most of the things he was in. Again, why does he have any precedence here? Is he trying to do good? Is he bringing attention to anything? No. And furthermore, he needs to go back to Canada.
Well, again, though, this is the problem. This is a cause somehow resonated with celebrities that apparently managed to carry just enough clout,
right,
to get a few more people, and by a few we mean an unfortunately large number. Not necessarily statistically as much as it is just that's a large number of people refusing vaccinations for really stupid reasons, which goes on to create a whole host of problems for people who cannot be vaccinated, because there's a difference. You can you can be perfectly fine and not an anti-vaxxer and have legitimate reasons for having a child that medically cannot have a vaccination, either by age, by other medical conditions, by other medical situations, by other things going on that would prevent them from being vaccinated. Meanwhile, you have a disease that was effectively all but eradicated,
Right.
or turned into such a low incident that at one point we were sitting here going, they have what? You know, like how does this happen? Who gets this? Like, this is like a third world problem with poor medical care, and you know, like, how does this happen?
Right.
We've turned that back into something that is now a reasonable suspicion for even a doctor to have when your child gets sick.
Right.
That despite the fact that for the vast majority it's not an issue, and at one point it was literally something a doctor would have never thought about. Not originally, it would have been like, you know, way down the list, is now stuff they're having to think about again, like measles and mumps and rubella. Like, hi.
Exactly.
Damn near eradicated. You brought it back. Like,
right.
No.
Yeah, we've redone these, you know, and now it's more freaking resistant. Polio could become another thing. Because of a washed up DJ and a crappy actor.
I call it a horrible legacy for either one of them to be left with.
Right.
And that's what it's going to become. Like, as much as this keeps them, because again, this works both ways. As much as we can sit here and call them a washed out whatever, the reality is that the anti-vax movement happened for them at a point in which it became a second career. So it keeps them relevant
for a moment
as the spokesman or spokesperson for this cause. You know, God knows, March of Dimes did a lot for Jerry Lee Lewis.
Right. But Jerry Lee Lewis done a lot for March of Dimes, and you know, the fatality rate has went down.
But what I'm saying is, at a certain point in his career, he wasn't doing that much else.
Right.
Like, he was pretty much just the March of Dimes guy. Like, he still played music, he was still whatever, but he was still basically cashing in on old celebrity and helping a cause. Not that I'm saying he did anything bad. Well, he had a checkered history, but that's a different story. I mean, though, he was supporting a good cause, and yes, you know, Jerry's Kids helped a lot of people, but it also helped Jerry Lee Lewis.
Right. But, you know, if we look at the body of work.
Oh, Abbas Ridwan, no. See, no. We're going to ban you now, but thanks for playing. Bippity boppity boom. Bye. And blocked user. Alrighty.
And
so
we're going to delete comments now. Goodbye, farewell. Out of the box you go.
But away they went.
Comparatively, you know, Jerry Lee Lewis began producing movies in the 40s.
Right.
All the way up.
Right.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that Jerry Lee Lewis, career-wise, didn't have reasons for him to be popular.
Right.
He did. But much like, you know, many popular celebrities, you have a season.
Right.
His attachment to, you know, Jerry's Kids and the March of Dimes helped extend that. As in, he still continued doing, you know, appearances. It was a great cause for him to be involved in. He did a lot for the cause. But it also kept him culturally relevant.
Right.
As in, his association with that cause most likely well extended his career.
Right. But see, here's also things to remember. Is Jerry Lee Lewis also went to Vietnam. He did a lot of charity events for his $50 million.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not saying in career situation, because I know there's some controversy surrounding Jerry Lee Lewis. We're gonna push that to the side for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And just focus on March of Dimes, Jerry's Kids, and his actual career.
Mm-hmm.
And in that regard, it worked. It was a vehicle for both.
Right.
It brought attention to Jerry's to the March of Dimes, but it also brought attention to him.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same regard, that's kind of the at least the McCarthy side of it
For the moment. I think they're both done. All right. So moving on to something that caused me to go, what the hell are you talking about, Joe?
Okay.
Firearm auction raises records.
Yeah. So West Virginia, through the West Virginia Treasurer's Office, held its annual firearms, and I'm reading straight from WCHS ABC 8. The West Virginia Treasurer's Office held its annual firearms auction Thursday in Charleston and brought in a record of more than $139,000. More than 600 lots of firearms went up for bid. Repeating that, more than 600 lots of firearms went up for bid, and that money goes back to local and state law enforcement agencies. So, part of West Virginia's unclaimed property laws allows law enforcement agencies to turn over any unused or old firearms to the state treasurer's offices so they can be auctioned off. Effectively, the firearms up for bid included ones that are too old or no longer used by departments, or that had been seized and had been sitting in evidence rooms for a long period of time. If an agency's firearms are sold, it gets that money, which can be used to help its departments. Okay, then we pop in with Ravenwood Police Chief Lance Morrison, who explained how this money helps fund his department. We have about 10 officers. This is a direct quote. We have about 10 officers. The funds from this auction helps us buy things such as radios and bulletproof vests. Morrison said, "We have a small budget, so being able to purchase this equipment keeps our officers safe. It's vital to our safety and work." Pause. Follow the bouncy ball with me. Take as much time as you need. You have guns. So more than, some of which are used by law enforcement. Some of which have been seized, arguably from someone, since it's in an evidence room, charged in a criminal act. You're now selling those, granted to licensed dealers. You did have to have a federal firearms license to attend this auction. It wasn't open to the public, but mostly these were going to be dealers. Some are going to be collectors. Probably more than likely, mostly dealers. Dealers turn around and sell firearms, through their stores and gun auctions, gun shows throughout the state. You're using the money to buy bulletproof vests and radios and some other equipment. But isn't it kind of statistically likely that some of those guns, that you took from bad people with guns, because these were good guys with guns, so goes your argument, that you now have to buy bulletproof vests to potentially stop the bullet from one of these guns that you sold, maybe another officer's gun, maybe a bad guy with a gun, to stop the bullets from them from killing your officer. Anyone else just think, wouldn't it have been easier to just destroy the guns?
Or
sell the scrap?
Buy the gun. If you don't need it, Why are you buying it? Why aren't you buying bulletproof vests? Why aren't you buying new radios? Why aren't you buying cruisers instead of buying new guns?
Well, now arguably guns do have a lifespan, and there's a point in which I'm sure that guns in police departments are effectively treated like corporate leasing for vehicles, that you have a fleet of them.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to all pretty much be the same,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can mass order ammunition for said guns.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, while we hope that these guns aren't worn out because of all the dead people attached to them,
Mm-hmm.
that most of it's going to be firearms training, recertification, firearms practice, sportsmanly gun activities, versus, a body count.
Right.
They do wear out. They do wear out.
Right.
Like I at no point do I want a police officer with a worn out gun having to try to defend themselves and the gun fails because it's just too old. That part I get. That part I get. I'm going, but wouldn't it have made more sense,
Mm-hmm.
instead of selling these guns on,
Right.
to have destroyed them and sold them for scrap,
Mm-hmm.
than to put them back out into a market to be bought by whomever and potentially face the situation in which you could literally have an officer whose old gun is used to shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're now relying on the vest and hoping that keeps them from being killed by what was potentially their own former weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just, ugh. It's one of those stories that's just like, ugh, to me.
Well, it's very and I'm looking and seeing what their budget actually is, because, of course, they are a municipality. Municipalities, oh, how much of a small budget? $792,750.
Okay, arguably for 10, that's Ravenswood.
That's Ravenswood's public budget for the police department. This doesn't include DARE grants, COP grants, bonds, or anything else.
Mm-hmm. With that, that's probably payroll and healthcare. I'm just saying, for if you divide that across 10 officers, that's 72,000 an officer, 72,009 an officer.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming they're in the state average of about 26,000 a year, then you tack on payroll taxes, and then you tack on, employee benefits.
Mm-hmm.
That's basics. Like, throw in some office supplies and some vehicle maintenance. I could see that being a small budget.
Really, because if we look at their, and I love, and this is the reason I dug this up, is because I love looking at it. Their fire department gets $62,000 a year. Their dog warden gets $2,400 a year. That's less than $200 a year to take care of animals.
Mm-hmm.
But they're paying $770,000 for 10 officers for their city police. Yeah. But can't afford to buy radios and equipment, so they have to auction off their old guns that are debatable on where they're at.
Yeah. And more importantly, where they'll end up.
Right.
Meanwhile, I think we need to take a moment and answer some questions, because we're getting a little bit of a line here.
Okay, let's take care of questions.
Alrighty, so Devin 32678, is my boss in hot water? I think he is.
let's take a look here. And Heart Song, type your question with your birth date. It has to be a specific question. I don't give full general readings because it's about 45 minutes, and that would be one reading for my whole show.
Well, 2 readings for the whole show.
Yeah. All right. Oh, he's in boiling hot water. The Hangman. Followed by the Four of Pentacles, trying to gather up money and support. Followed by that lovely Death card. You may have a new boss.
Well, there you go. All righty. So, Ashley, Ashley's mother-in-law has another question, 92971. Is Michael a possible good match?
A lot of opportunities there. Looks like a good match. Decently infuriated. May be slow. So if you're wanting a fast one, this one ain't it. But other than that, I think they'll be fine.
Alrighty. And then Christina. Hey, guys. 92285. Will Ivan and I be reunited physically in each other's presence next month?
I feel you do. I think it's very quick. I think there's a financial problem that'll be dealt with, and then things can move forward with the two of you.
Okay, and I've tried to keep up with questions, so if we've missed anyone, please pop that back in. But I'm looking back through, and I don't see any others.
Good.
Unless Heart's Love just popped in.
No, not yet.
Okay, cool.
So let's move over to Patreons. Let's remind our Patreons, baristas, you have your private live that will be on Monday at 8 o'clock.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, yeah, let me flip that up there, and we will get to our baristas very quickly. And we do want to thank our Patreon supporters for their support. Beverly Walker, Mika G, Mary Winfield, Brenda Bryant, Ashley Guest, Shannon C, Shannon D, and the lovely Lady Gwendolyn. If you'd like to learn more about us or the show or how to become a Patreon sponsor like these wonderful baristas that we just heard about, please visit us at PCSPnetwork.com.
Yes, and Ashley, 8 o'clock Monday will be the private live stream. Well, it'll be a private Zoom meeting. All right, so Hearts Love Joe.
All right. 418-2000. Does Jackson want to contact me soon? And his thoughts?
Let's see what's going on with Jackson.
Oh, yeah. So, I see that. That is difficult, Christina. That long distance is a thing.
Yeah. All right. I feel like he does want to contact you soon. There's a lot of thoughts about where he's going in life, how he's headed. There is interest and desire with you, but I also feel like there's this self-worth issue problem that he's going to have to get over.
All righty. Well, hopefully that works out for you guys, and he's able to overcome that.
Yep.
Because it sounds like she's interested.
Yep. But he's just going to get a game on.
I'm making assumptions, Heart's Love. I'm just making assumptions.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you later. If you're not a Patreon, we will see you on Tuesday. And it will be an interesting show. We may have surprises. We always have surprises. And, of course, Barista's Monday. And you have to be a barista by Monday at 8 p.m. to be included in our private live stream Zoom meeting.
Ooh, Heart's Love goes on to ask, do you think he's shy?
I think he is shy, but also think he overthinks shit.
Oh.
Yep.
There we go.
All right, guys. Have a great evening, and we'll be back Tuesday at 9:30.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Let's work. Yo, it's go time, showtime, never backing down. downtime. One shot, yo, make it count, yo. Crunch time, shine time, make this moment my time. Get a grip, yo, ready, set, go. We bring the thunder. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's go. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's go. Yeah, it's my time, yo time. Step into the spotlight. Get lit, yo. Let yourself go. Our time, high time. Gotta go big time. This is it, yo. Never take no flight time. Grind time. Take it to the street time. Turn the roof off. Get loco. Game time, win time. We gon' bring it home time. No regrets now.